Get started, if I can just get the Aero Club manager's attention.
Tyler, are you done drooling on us?
You want to take?
All right, Roger.
There you go. And of course it would be.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, there's a pin going around the clipboard. Please make sure I get it back because I'm in the hat for it.
He's in charge of it, and it's my pen, and it's a good one too, so. Because Bob didn't make sure that there was a pen
I thought I
attached
had
to
one
it.
in my pocket and I left it on the desk.
Yeah, I guess you
Or
did
it fell out
something.
at the hangar.
Oh.
This is my blue one. This is, I have to keep this because everyone's got to get blue nowadays.
Okay,
All my signatures.
this is the December safety meeting for the March Aero Reserve Base Aero Club. And I'm Roger Mann, and I'm the safety officer, and Bob Pierce over there is the manager. And we got John Law over here as our the chief flight instructor. And the wing safety guy is walking out the door right now, so he can't stand it anymore. Well, we were going to get to that. Thanks, Bill. Bill, there's the wing safety officer for 452nd. And let's see, who else we got that's notable in here? We got Andrew Mall here. He's a lawyer.
Who's down over there? We haven't seen him for a while.
Well, yes, and then we got retired General Ball. And, yeah, he wants to make sure that everybody knows he's retired, so. And,
We got
you know,
Dave in the back.
yeah, yeah, well, I know, we got Mr. Gebhardt, who's retired also. Armed Forces Radio and Television Network guy. Let's see, I think that's about it. We could add a whole bunch of other things. We got Navy representation here and all this. Okay.
We got maintenance here.
Yeah, I don't know. Is the maintenance guy here
Yeah,
that?
Mr. Gonzalez, Sergeant Gonzalez.
Okay. Yeah. Did you sign? Make sure you sign up on the upper left-hand corner on the front page. It says right there maintenance, because that's the way you guys get credit for it. Okay. Normally what we do is we just kind of do a little bit of a routine to keep things even and make sure that I don't miss something, because I usually do. Even after I follow my own outline, I still miss a whole bunch of stuff. What we usually do is that we introduce any new people that might be here who have just recently, well, it doesn't have to be recently. It can be as much as 20 years ago they joined the club. They just haven't bothered to come out and fly or show up at a safety meeting. Sometimes that happens. But actually, from what I can tell, except for Mitchell, he hasn't shown up for a while, but I guess that's okay. The Gebhardts are here. Let's see, anybody else that's new that have not been introduced? I think that we got everybody. Okay, new pilot ratings. Has anybody soloed? Has anybody gotten a pilot rating? Has anybody gotten violated by the FAA? Has anybody, that includes Air Force or military flying or your civilian job too. That's not just only the Aero Club.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's good. That's real good. Oh, gee. The guy who just spoke up is Jerry Kearns, and he lives in another state.
Confusion.
Yeah.
Also known as Arkansas.
Arkansas, yeah.
That's dedication.
It is, yes. He comes out here to California just to come to our meeting. Well, maybe there's some other things too. Okay, so nobody did anything. Nothing happened, huh? Okay. All right, experiences. Is there anything that anybody could talk about? There's rumors flying that we had an airplane incident. It is true. The individual that involved was going to be here tonight to do his side of the picture of what happened, but his job took him away from coming here. So we're not going to be able to do that. Bob is gonna cover a little bit about what happened so that you
Can we
guys,
stop right here, because there's an individual sitting on this side of the room that had an experience, and he hasn't talked about it
okay,
yet. Mr. Mall.
Mr. Mull, yeah, well, I know. I mean, I'm not bypassing that yet. I
Oh,
was
okay.
just talking about, about our individual that didn't show up. Okay, now, let's talk about some experiences.
Oh, I guess you mean me.
Well, I'm just
Leave
looking,
it to an attorney, he's always denying
It's an-
everything.
So my wife Viva was also a member of the Aero Club, and we were coming back from a trip to Oakland, Concord, and as we're coming over the pass headed inbound over Ontario, my attitude
I
indicator
just put it right there on the
sinks,
thing there.
tips to the left, and goes completely inactive, and the directional gyro freezes, irrespective of heading. And I look over to the right, and the suction gauge has gone from a nice healthy 4.5 to 0. It didn't die gradually, it didn't take its time, it just kind of flopped over. And I ran a tomato flames checklist, made sure that I was still legal to continue flying, and landed back at March. I could see March from where I was because I was at 9,500 feet, so I flew it back and landed, no incident. But it was a little weird.
if,
The shaft on the vacuum pump actually sheared, which it's supposed to do. And it was close to the 500-hour mark. Or 1,000-hour mark, I should say. So, we just changed it out and it's working again, so we're pulling 3.5 at idle.
one of the things that any of you guys who have aspirations of going on to get your instrument rating, get used to what just happened to Andrew, because you will fly, especially if you fly a simulator, but also on the real airplane, what that instructor loved to do for instrument flying is they love to have a failed vacuum pump. And they will cover up the instruments that controls, and you have to fly IFR without certain instruments. And so get used to that, Andrew, if you do go for your instrument rating.
It was a little disorienting. I tore a piece of paper off my kneeboard
And
and
put-
covered up the attitude indicator.
And that's a very good idea, very good idea. As a matter of fact, FAA recommends that if you have a failed instrument to cover it up. That's one of those things, or AOPA, I don't know about the FAA. FAA doesn't want you to cover up anything. Especially don't tell, you're supposed to tell them everything. But yeah, that's a very good experience, actually. And it's one of those things where it doesn't take long for you to recognize it, but C-17s don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, I guess. So with everything being automated and high tech and stuff, but
They've got an iPad.
they got an iPad. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know Bill uses one, so.
I don't know how again, things work.
Yeah, well, that's another, did they give you instructions with those things?
We carry captain for that.
Oh, it's all right. Oh, I see, okay. Okay, anybody else that has anything to share with the club? Like I said, it doesn't have to be just only club only, anything, you airline guys can also tell your stories too, and make us passengers scary. Okay, we're going to talk to the Aero Club manager, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on. We'll rush over through the Know Your SOPs. We go chapter to chapter, not chapter, paragraph per paragraph. And we're going to talk about what is called, I dubbed it as adding it all up. And that'll make sense later on when you see it. Okay, Aero Club manager.
Are we gonna talk about the pictures at all?
Yeah, they're all right here. They're all ready to go.
Whereabouts on the program?
Well, they're right next. It's right here.
Oh, okay. So I can just go from me right to that.
Yes.
Gotcha. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy Hanukkah. So anyway, here we are. Been a slow month. I did have a council meeting with the base commander and the staff last Thursday. And
And the base commander isn't real happy with the Aero Club right now. He's kind of worried, just like I am and everything else, because we're not flying enough. Now, I do grant you that we haven't had a lot of airplanes. We've had some issues with that. My immediate boss has, here in the last week, has provided me with a lot of approvals for purchasing new equipment. So this is what we've done in the past week. 29 Foxtrot has a new altimeter, decoder, and an airspeed indicator, and it's been certified for the PDOT static check. The next two aircraft we have for the PDOT static are going to be the 182 and 03 November, followed by the T-34, 234 Whiskey Papa. Whiskey Papa, now we're still waiting from Garmin, which on the intercom system that was sent in, cost $195, which isn't a lot of money, but that was paid on the 4th, and we're still waiting for the shipment of the unit back. So it couldn't have been a real expensive part or a big part to replace in the communications box itself. But as of this morning, from an email to Spruce Aircraft, it's either going to be shipped today or tomorrow. Hopefully it went out today. If it's here today, they paid for a special shipment back to them. It has to go back to them versus drop shipping to us. And they're absorbing the cost because of the delay for that unit itself on our intercom system in 234 Whiskey Papa. So if it comes in on Thursday, I'll pick it up on Friday morning. If it gets on Friday, it's going to be tight unless we fly over, someone flies over to Corona and gets the van to take them over, pick it up, and then fly back to March. That can be installed by Saturday morning. It's just a plug and play. So that's what's going on with the club. 57ZZ, we'll talk about that one. That's the one we've had fuel problems with. We've gone through a lot of excess work, which wasn't required because we were going through the system and it appeared that the fuel was the biggest problem. So the fuel system has been completely gone through. However, we still have surging of the RPM once the aircraft goes from takeoff power back into a climb mode or to a cruise mode. And it fluctuates from 100 to 150 RPM. So I've got approval for that for a new prop governor, and that's going to be just a little under $2,000 to get 5.7. So once 5.7 gets back up, we'll finish off the few hours that are remained required for that engine and put that one back online. 5.6, as an update, all the cylinders are pulled. We were hoping to get those down to Oceanside this week. It's going to be very, very tight this week. May have to look at next week to get it down. And it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks to have the cylinders overhauled, and then we'll get those reinstalled on that engine. It's probably going to be about February. 555 will come back up, and we'll end up doing an update with that one also, whether it requires an annual. I forgot the exact date for that one. So we'll end up with, hopefully, 234 Whiskey Papa, 56ZZ, and 57ZZ. And then 555 with its incidents, and we're going to cover that in just a few moments. And then the next one after that will be the oil pump for 53ZZ. We've got a new spring. The thing is, we have to do is to test the engine some way, and unfortunately, all of the paperwork for that engine is lost in the system. Not in our system, but we believe the paperwork was sent to Parks Industries. They say they don't have it. They've looked for it, which means it went to somebody else who's now deceased, and all that paperwork has kind of disappeared after he was deceased. So we'll have to get the engine recertified. That doesn't mean that we have to tear it down. It requires an inspection, and the estimated time, which we would have on the logbooks on that particular engine from the time it was overhauled. So we have all that data, and it'll be very quick then to get that one back up, and we're hoping that's back up by the summer. So that's kind of the program we have, and in between the next 3 months, it's kind of like maintenance time for all of us. We have to anticipate the El Nino that's going to be around. We did have snow here the other day, and we've had some high winds. Today it was pretty nice, the way I look at it. It's just been a little chilly for all of us. But when the winds come back up, most of us are shut down because of the 10-knot rule or 10-mile-an-hour rule for our training program. So that's kind of where the club is going. we just have to force more individuals to try and offer more flying. If you know somebody needs to join the club, we need to get them into the club, we need to get people flying. We've got to show some kind of a profit by the summer, otherwise the club is going to close down, I'll guarantee you that. So, I want everybody to spread the word of where we stand, since we lost 23,000 last year, thereabouts. We're already in the hole for October of about $2,000. This is gonna be a very expensive month, but that's because we're putting a lot of money into maintenance. But then you can go into another account and we just kind of depreciate that back out, which will help us out a little bit. So if everybody can put in an hour's time each month, just an hour's time, and or 2 hours time, or try and stay current, we can get our flight time up over 70 hours, which is best for us. We're kind of a break even at about 100 hours. That means the T-34s will get more time for the National Cemetery on our flybys and etc. Are there any questions in regards to what I kind of covered? It's a really quick synopsis of what's going on. Yeah. Welcome back. How are you doing? Good. So we'll get into the next portion here. We're going to talk about some issues here and where we are. Roger? I got my little pointer tonight. Well, this is, it's kind of blown up. But you can see right in here, the main gear folded up on this aircraft. There's some other pictures here I hope we can show you on this thing.
Yeah,
And the flap is damaged on the back.
Actually, we can just go right through these
Yeah, just
pictures,
go to the next one here and do it. So here's the gear door. You can see it's folded up down here at the bottom. This gear door here is good. The landing gear is good. A little bit of scuff on the outside of the wheel. This is the inboard gear door in the T-34, and the back bracket is broken. No damage to the wing, no damage to the propeller, no damage to the engine at all.
This thing's got a timer on it and it shuts
Are you
off.
kidding?
No, it's weird.
Okay,
That's what, there was no prop strike or anything.
Yeah. Okay, next.
That's the damage and some of, this is why after
This
it's
is
in
the,
the
this is the
hangar.
flap, and the flap bracket on the top. It's got a dimple here. This is a push rod that comes off the flap motor, and it was dragging on the ground back here at the lower bottom. Actually, that's in backwards.
Hmm? No, that's, see this yellow stripe there?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Okay. So what it's done, this is repairable. It's probably going to be about $4,000 if we need to repair it. But we have all those parts sitting in the hangar, so we're just going to take off a flap on our Silver Queen that's been in there for a number of years, and we're just going to replace that, and we'll replace the inner gear door along with some connecting rods. This is after we cranked up the gear. We tried to crank it back down again, and you see the gear door here is pretty well beat up, and it's non-repairable as it stands today. The jack stand was put under there. Actually, this is in the hangar. We put it on the jack stand, and the gear is back down here. This is the interior. This is the bracket that broke here. This is a push rod for the inner gear door on both sides. And these drift lines here go to the flap mechanism. And this is the switch box. You got anything that's further out on that, Roger? You took a real close one.
Well, yeah, these were the closer
This is,
ones. See, this
well,
is.
let me just go back
that-
from here. Well, you can back up one here real quick.
Well, we can just, yeah, and
Go
then
back one.
you could go like,
This is the rod
that broke.
here that basically broke, and we put it back into place. And here's the rod, the tube that it broke out of. Next one. So we think what happened is that the tube broke here, swung around, and hit the micro switches, and that's why the motor stopped, because the circuit breaker didn't pop. The motor just stopped, and the gear was half up, and it was not all the way down. The nose gear was not all the way down. Yet the rod for the nose gear had enough pressure on it to hold the nose gear down. And the indication was 1 green and 2 in transit or 2 unsafe.
So the flyby to the tower says, yeah, the gear appears down in the lock. The key to all this is that they didn't look at gear doors because the gear doors were half closed. And there's some other things that we'll talk about here. So this rod that starts right in here, that pushes in and out, and it's spring loaded here, broke at this tube here, and although this is the box we're looking at, don't look at the crank because this is out of an A36, but this hasn't changed since 1948. And then this rod right here is all in good shape, which pushes it down. And because this one broke, this free fell, and it went to over center, and that's why it stayed down when the other side was partially down. It only had to take and travel about another 3 inches and it would have been down and locked for the other side. And this one here would have been down and locked here, but there was enough pressure through this mechanism here to hold the nose gear down on landing, and there's really not much weight. So he touched down, and as he's rolling out, he gets about 300 feet from the end of runway 30, and it starts pulling to the right, and it just kind of started folding up, and he cut the power immediately. He'd already asked for assistance, from what I understand. So this is the thing. So we have to change this. We have to change this. We have to go through the gearbox with the bushings here to make sure we're okay there. This will be retensioned then again after we install it. We put a little tension meter on it to make sure that the spring is adjusted properly on both sides. They have to have so much, about 90 foot-pounds of spring tension on that. This is what holds the gear down in a T-34. It's not the rod, it's the spring tension basically. Malcolm?
What part did the emergency gear extension have?
What now?
What part in this did the emergency gear extension, the manual gear extension?
Well, the emergency gear extension comes off of back up here, and it comes up with some cables and goes up here on the side of the fuselage, which is under a cable and a chain-driven gear.
I think he's asking if it was done.
You're asking if it was done or was not done?
Yeah, if it wasn't done, it didn't play any part in it, and that was why I was curious.
No, he did not use the crank. You see, here's the issue. We had this as a discussion before we came in here, is where do we go? Because under the checklist, the fail-safe system that Beechcraft designed is that it's always an electric failure and it's only designed to crank down under electrical failure. It doesn't say if you get an unsafe gear extension to take and go back to the crank and crank it down. See, that's the big if in here. So when you go to all the checklists, including my airplane or any other airplane that's been a Beechcraft, it doesn't talk about unsafe gear to take and use the crank to do it. What I would have done it, probably, yeah, I'd probably given it a crank to make sure that it was down. And how do we know that it's down and locked and it's at the stop? Because when I disengage the clutch to engage the crank, when the gear is down and locked and every bonanza, it's 1/8 to 1/4 turn only. You're not going to get a full turn out of it. That means it's reached the stop, and that's the coast that it's supposed to have. It's a very small, high torque motor. It's about this big and about that long. And it's got a little teeny gear about the size of my little pinky here. And then it works a worm gear, and that works that big crescent gear that's on the gearbox. And then there's a coast. So when it reaches the switches, it shuts off electricity, and it's because of the torque that's still going, it coasts about 1/4 of an inch. Remember the little horseshoe cup in that crescent? There's a little horseshoe on both ends of the crescent. That goes to the stop in the gearbox, which is in here. It goes to this gearbox in here. There's a little crescent, and that goes up that little thing, and it comes around, and it kind of does this. It's that little coast. So to check to make sure the gear is down and locked, anytime you have it, you should only get 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn to the down and locked position. Does that help solve some of the issues here? Sir?
Would cranking it have made any difference in this case?
That's kind of an if in my viewpoint, and I'll tell you why. Because he didn't know the rod had broken. And if he had cranked it down with the rod the way it was, it could have caused damage, it could not have caused damage. It's one of those iffies. We really don't know. You know, we'd have to get a hold of an engineer and see what his theory is in regards to some of this.
But the left had already free fallen down
Yeah,
into
the
a
the
down
left
block.
free fell down and gave him a green indication, which means that, this one's geared down and locked, so this must be a bad indication here, which is the squat switches.
If that rod had broken, wouldn't have he had control of the manual
For
gear
this-
extension from the right side?
Yes, the way it appears now, can you back this up a little bit?
Yeah.
It might have. Yeah. Back it up a little bit more.
That's the bent
Oh, I
one
gotta go
there.
to the next one.
Oh, this way?
No, the other way. You
Okay.
you went back, one more. You see, here's the gearbox switches down here. And you see, there's a stop right here on the adjustment, and it hits this thing. The key is that this rod here was swung way over. It was clear over here on the other side. This thing was swung over here, and it was sitting like this over here on this side. Now, if you cranked it down and it continued to move, would it have done damage? I don't know. Would it have moved out of the way? Maybe. You know, it's kind of one of those iffy things. You know, you can come up with supposition and ideas, and you really don't know unless you test it, I guess.
If the rod was broken and he hand cranked it down, even with that there, would it still have allowed it to crank it down?
The possibility is probably pretty good. I would say the possibility is pretty good from my knowledge. Again, you know, it's kind of damn if you do, damn if you don't. You know, it's like I said, if it was my airplane, I probably would have given it a try to see what happened. And then knowingly, if I got two more green, I'm going to say, that thing over there gave me a green early. Pardon me, gave me a green early, so therefore a good possibility of it free falling and down locked, which means it's not connected. Which means I would have stopped straight ahead on the on the runway and just shut down the airplane. You know, to ensure that we're not going to get a gear collapse.
In these aircraft, is the free fall down and locked actually locked, or is it just kind of hanging?
Well, it
there?
goes over center.
Okay.
It goes over center. It's not like the KC-135. You know, when you do a hand crank, it goes over, and then it has a locking mechanism comes on top to hold it down. Or if you're in any other kind of aircraft, like aboard ship, you know, they always put a clamp on those things so that in the rock and roll of ships and what have you, that the gear won't collapse while it's tied down with chains. And they put quite a bit of pressure on with chains aboard ship to hold them down in heavy seas. Well, some guys don't like the Navy, you know. Some of these guys in the front row, I have. I'm fighting 3 Air Force guys here, come on. It takes a special pilot to get aboard ship, I'll just say that. Not that I'm special, I'm sorry, I just have to rub it in once in a while. Is there any more questions to what I got here? It's kind of nice to dig into someone's jaw once in a while. Let's go back to the next one here. Yeah, we would have just gotten a little bit further back. Oh, back that one, last one up. No, the next one.
Well, there's that.
No, go back forward the other way. Next, right there. This one right here has got a crank in it, right here. This is the gear that folded up on the side. No, this is the other gear.
No, this is the right gear.
This is the good gear right here, and it's got a buckle in it. In fact, when we this is the bad gear that folded up, and this is the one that broke over here.
Matter of fact, that is the other end of that.
And it's broken right across here, and it plugs in on the other side. But this is the one that gear folded, and you can see it's riveted and it's spot welded, and then it's got a bushing in here, and it's got a screw bolt with on the back side, and then the rod goes out this way, out to the fuselage, to the wing. And that's got probably a 3/4 inch crease in it, so it's kind of like a crook in my finger. It's sticking up quite a ways. So both of those will be, the rest of this looks pretty decent in here, including those rods there for the inner doors look pretty good.
Hey, Bob,
Sir?
if this is a material failure on one of the T-34s, would it be a good idea to take a look at all the T-34s, make sure it's not about to happen in another airplane? Is there a way to?
You know,
inspection?
I think I'd rather take it and go back to Bonanza and see what they have, if it was Teledyne. The best way, the only way you can do this is pull those rods out and strip them down and die penetrate to see if we got any cracks. And we won't know what's going on here until we pull this off to see if there was corrosion in it or whether it was just an absolute failure. One of these airplanes has 12,000 hours on there or something like that. Recall? Something like that? Randy, remember?
No, that sounds about right,
Yeah,
yeah.
10 or 12,000 hours in some of these. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But we'll have to look at this and see what failed and then come down to a conclusion of where we're gonna go. I think it's worth looking at, you know. I mean, I've got 3,500 hours on mine. I've pulled my rods off and put new springs on and gone through bushings and everything when I got mine because I said, I just don't trust springs. And even today, on a high-speed turnoff, I'm never very fast. I'd rather stop on the runway, make a hard right turn, and get off the runway. Because the spring is what's putting the pressure to hold that gear. And once that gear starts moving, I think it forces this thing in here to start doing this. It's probably worthwhile to look at it in the next inspection to see where we're going to go after we pull these out and review them. Even though this one is damaged, this one may still be good. You know, the rod itself, I mean, the rod itself is no good, but I mean, the whole unit itself, it probably doesn't show any cracks at all, even though this has had a lot of force on it. We'll have to see what caused it to break. What caused it to break. If we see that there's corrosion, yeah, we're gonna have to pull them off and send them into the shop and have them dye penetrate it, clean it off, and then primer it and repaint. Any other questions before we move on? It's gonna be a long evening. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on, go right into what we're going to do tonight. Let's see, the SOPs, that's what we do here is we just kind of go over real quick what through the whole SOPs. Eventually we go through the entire book and then start all over again. And tonight we got into chapter 2, which is pilot currency requirements and training. Everybody should know that, of course, all flight training is conducted in accordance with AFI 34-117 supplements and FARs. You do have to have a special airport aircraft checkout, such as Burbank, John Wayne, Long Beach, Los Angeles, and those kind of places. You are supposed to get a checkout before you land at those places. Mountain flying, we have a mountain flying checkout also, and Santa Catalina Island. If you're wanting to go out there, then John will gladly go out there as long as you buy his lunch. And you pay for the landing fees, which is interesting. I won't get into that. The landing fees, I think, are what, $10 or something like that?
25.
25.
Is it 25 now? Okay. Gee. So anyhow, that's what you got to do in order to get checked out in these particular areas. How many here go to LAX? Anybody land at LAX? Other than commercial airliners, that is.
I
Okay.
have a question, Roger.
Yeah.
Like if you're checked out at Orange County Airport, then can you go into like Burbank, or do you have to do a checkout at every single airport?
You know, I don't know. That's up to our chief pilot, really.
I think you have to go to each one, yeah.
Is that so? Yeah.
1 hour minimum, right?
1 hour minimum.
1 hour minimum,
Lunch is-
yeah, at
lunch-
least.
The lunch is required for each airport.
For each airport, too. Yes, I think that'd be fair, yeah.
The biggest thing going through the Los Angeles basin is the instructor showing you the corridors that you're legal in so you don't come down with a violation. That's the main issue going through the Los Angeles basin. And there's corridors that you're allowed to go through at low altitude.
Are you talking about flyways?
Right over LAX,
That's it,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah, LAX has one, and then they got down at San Diego. The one at San Diego is really cool because it takes you right up over Del Coronado Island and just right up the, the peninsula there. It's really neat, but make sure you bring your camera.
There's a difference between the flyways and the VFR corridors.
Yes, there sure is.
You
Yeah.
have to have a clearance to go through the flyways. You don't have to have a clearance to go through the corridor.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
You gotta keep them straight.
Thank you, that's what I was referring to.
Pardon me?
That's what I was referring to, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's, yeah. As a matter of fact, they get mad at you if you try to talk to them. I know, because the guy I was flying with was asking something, and they got all over him about it.
So violated.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. Okay, there's the flap. I do have these pictures throughout the thing here. Okay, flying has its unique risk. And basically what we're talking about when I was talking about adding it all up, basically what it pertains to is risk management, or CRM or ORM. For those of you that's in the CAP who fly airplanes there know what I'm talking about. Those who fly Air Force planes know what I'm talking about. For those of you that might be from the Navy and stuff, probably have no clue what I'm talking about, because they don't do that kind of stuff. They just go out and fly. No, not really. I'm just kidding.
And look, 4 things on a checklist, and the main thing is the tail hook.
The tail hook, yeah, okay. I'm sure that all the services do it, and I know, and of course, the airlines, you know, they are in such a routine as it is. As long as they don't break that routine, they're pretty much pretty safe too. But what the
Shut
CAP,
off again.
huh?
Timed out.
Timed out again.
Really? Huh? I'll be darned. Well, I'll just look at them up here myself then. Boy, I'll tell you. Civil Air Patrol has what they call a tactical risk management matrix. Okay. There, okay. It's a sheet of paper that basically has on it all the different, well, what they cover is 3 or 4 different areas. It just depends on who you're working with. Air Force has a similar thing like this. When I was flying with the Air Force, we used to have this, and we had to fill it out, and the aircraft commander during the briefing would stand up there and he would ask us questions like, did you get a good enough sleep last night? You know, if not, you know, well, how much sleep did you get, and all that kind of stuff. And in theory, both in the Civil Air Patrol and Air Force, and I'm sure with the other services, that if you, all those points you see over here on the right-hand side right there, and you put them over in these blank spots and add them all up, and then you add the whole thing up, and down at the bottom there is a number that you come to with a total, and if that total goes over a set number that whoever it is you're flying with puts, then in theory, like in the Air Force, we were supposed, the aircraft commander was supposed to be able to call up, you know, the ops group commander and says, well, we can't fly because we went over the thing, over that number. How many people really do that for real? That's another story, which we won't get into that topic tonight. I will touch on it at the very end. That's another story. A lot of the guys were afraid of even doing anything like that. If the numbers were high, they might discuss it with the crew, but to really call up, you know, the ops group commander or tell a mission incident commander at Civil Air Patrol that you can't fly the mission, sometimes it has ramifications. And, you know, that's a whole nother human factor that's involved. But face exactly what we do here as an Aero Club. It's very straightforward. You sit there, you walk out to the airplane, and I've seen Mitchell do it. I've seen, let's see, a couple of other people to come out, Jerry and Tyler, and they look and they see something that's wrong. Usually it's weather. And go, you know, I think that's a little bit out of my limits. I'm not going to do this. And that's what CRM is. Now, call it crew resource management, but it's actually any kind of risk management. And everything we do in our lives is risk management. The second you jump into your car, you're making a risk management decision, even though how minute it is. Are you willing to not go to work today and get the risk of getting in trouble with your boss because you got a bald tire and you know if you hit 100 miles an hour in your car in the rain, you might have a blowout. You know, so in an airplane, there's a whole lot of factors involved. This is the FAA's version of it, and it's actually kind of neat. They got up here, you know, sleep, how do you feel, the weather, how is your day going? You know, is it going good or is it going badly? Is the flight day or night? Planning. Is any of your, let's see, did you verify the weight and balance? In the Aero Club, we don't necessarily have to do an elaborate list like this, but what we do have is that we do have here in the Aero Club little tools that you actually do kind of a risk management. And you just don't realize it because it doesn't say risk management. One of those is just following your checklist. The checklist in itself is a risk management item. What we got going basically here is that you have to use the checklist. FAA does not necessarily say you have to use a checklist, but here you do. And I think it's a good idea. Those of us that have flown in the Air Force, I mean, we can't live without our checklist. You know, go to bed with it sometimes. You know, you take it and keep it with you all the time everywhere you go. We are allowed in the Air Force to put little notes in it as long as they're correct. Your checklist that you buy here, it's your own. You can put little notes in there. Just make sure that the note that you put in there is correct. That's the big thing. When you check the airplanes out off the FTP computer, check the airplane out, what do you have to do before you can dispatch the airplane on there? What's one of the things that you got on there? We've got a little checklist, yeah. On that checklist, it covers all these items on here. Have you done weight and balance? Have you done the weather? Have you checked, you know, all the things that pertain to the airplane and the safety of flight? That is, in all intents and purposes, a matrix checklist for risk management. Now, I know a lot of us, you know, you sit there, we fly the exact same airplane every day, you know, or every month, or every 6 months for some of you, or every 90 days. And you go out there and you know that you're not going to be overweight in the airplane. You know that you're going to be 99.9% of the time you're going to be okay. So many people don't do a weight and balance except for when they first started flying the airplane. I know the instructor makes you to do it, or at least that's one of your lessons that you have to do. However, when something changes, i.e. you have 2, 3 extra passengers in the airplane, and it's 110 degrees out here, and you know you're going to go up to Big Bear. Now maybe you should do a weight and balance. That's the risk. You know, you can sit there and go, no, I think I can do it because I did it 3 years ago. Okay, well, you just made a risk analysis right there. You are willing to take the risk to go up there and fly to Big Bear with 3 extra passengers, not knowing what their weight are, and it being 110 degrees out. So, any questions so far? Okay, let's see. And of course, another thing is preparing your annual Aero Club flight check and your BFR. How many here know that you got to have an annual check every year with the Aero Club? Yeah, hopefully most of you do. It's not a real check ride per se, neither is the BFR. BFR is required by the FAA. That's a biannual flight review every 2 years. It's not really a check ride. You're just going up with your instructor, and they're just checking to make sure that you know what you're doing and that you aren't flying unsafe out there. That is a risk management check right there. If they deem to think that that you're picking up some bad habits, then they will act on that. Air Force, of course, has a full-on check ride. It's a regular check ride. And if you fail that, then you have to go back into training again and work your way back up again. Many of these things don't have at the top of a CRM. You don't need to make it complicated like some places do. I know back when I was flying, Air Force was, they just kept changing the matrix sheet, but they still didn't make it into anything that was super complicated. It's just something that you go through, and when you are flying our airplanes here, you just basically, when you go out there, everything I just talked about is what you're going to be going through. I don't know, Bill, are they making it even a bigger deal now, or is it still kind of like it was back 10 years ago? Or you don't even pay attention to that? Yeah, it probably is not much different. Use what you already learned. For us old timers, we can always, the more, good grief, I have no idea what that is. The more you fly, the more you should be able to be aware of risk management. But again, here you go into this thing, we could talk about complacency, we could talk about a lot of things like that. You should know your limitations and use it in a mental CRM. Make your own matrix. For those of you that do fly a lot, you are new and you're a student. There's nothing wrong with making your own matrix. Make a little. With the computers today, you can get in there, take that copy of that one I just showed you, or the FAA's copy, and just make up your own. Use Excel and just put it together so that you just quickly write everything down. If you own your own airplane, which many of you do here, it's probably a good idea. I don't know, if in your little airplane, it's kind of like, do you really need to? Well, yeah, you probably do,
AOPA, Aviation Safety Foundation, has a really good online app. All you gotta do is go in there and fill it out. You don't have to do any paperwork. You just fly right through it, and it gives you a number. So you don't have to. You don't have to go through all this crap of making up your own stuff.
Yeah.
It's already done for you.
Yeah.
If you're a member.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's another thing. But you have there really is no excuse to not be able to do any of this stuff at all. Not with what we got today. When I first started flying, we didn't have computers and all that fancy stuff, and you had to buy books, lots of books, and you had to find where those were at. So, today it's not like that anymore, believe me. Okay, FAA does have a risk management decision path making platform where you can actually go online and get this. It talks about perceive, process, and perform. It splits up your risk management decision path, and the perceive part of it is your pilot, your aircraft, your environment and external factors, any of the stuff outside of what you're doing with the airplane. Process the consequences of things that you're going to be doing. What are you doing? Where are you going? The alternatives, the reality of it, and external factors. And again, perform your performance, transfer, eliminate, accept, and mitigate. All this stuff is that cycle of risk management. Those of you in CAP know exactly what I'm talking about. This right here is just it's all part of the same profile that I just showed you there. It gives you the purpose and the profile, and it defines what a hazard is. It defines what risk is, and then it gives you sample scenarios. And then again, it goes through that same cycle. Perceive the hazard by looking at it, process risk levels by considering what you need to do, the consequences if you should still fly it, i.e. I decided to go ahead and go to Big Bear with 3 extra people at 110 degrees. What are the consequences of that, and what is your risk? And then, of course, once you have decided what is the risk, and hopefully you eliminate the risk, you perform the risk management. And then, of course, at post-flight, again, it's the same process of risk management. You sit down and you critique what it is that you just did. So like anything that you do, the Air Force is very good at critiquing, and you critique yourself. I think that's probably one of the reasons why in the Air Force a pilot can be so successful jumping from off the street and going to UPT and ending up on the other end flying a supersonic jet that's more powerful than anything in the world. Because Air Force does critiquing. And that's one of the things I find that really makes a big difference. I have noticed throughout my career flying airplanes that those people that just decide to just land, pack up their gear, and go home and not sit down and go over what it is that they did on that flight tend to go out and make the same mistakes later on. And then they break it down into basic VFR flying. And of course, there's a lot of different things that can take place there. You can, operating rules, checklist use. Are you using the checklist? I'm basically reading down here in the lower left-hand corner down here. Basic airplane control, inadequate pre-flight inspection, fuel management, no weather briefing, poor traffic scan, just this once mentality, fear of disappointing a passenger. Many of you guys, I know, take up passengers with you. Many of you do. That's one of the things I find that a lot of people have done in this club. And always remember, though, don't necessarily be flying for the passenger. Yes, you want to have the passenger get a thrill, but they're going to get a thrill out of just taking off and landing. For you, you do not have to do something that's super spectacular to impress somebody. And that's one of the, I've seen it happen, and I know General Ball had a situation back when he was commander here where that happened. So it's, you just need to just stick with what you know you're supposed to be doing. For cross-country BFR, there you're concerned about flight planning and monitoring. Your fuel, that's a biggie. That's a huge one. How many people have sat down and never really properly planned their fuel? ATC communication procedures, what are you going to do when you get to the other end? Basic airplane control, operating rules and procedures, pre-flight inspections. This is the stuff that the FAA goes through in their official stuff. they talk about night BFR. How many here like to fly at night?
There's no lift in night air.
Yeah. We did have a couple of people, but they left the club for financial reasons. But we used to have a couple of people that flew at night all the time. All the time. But night flying is a lot of fun. It really is. It's a neat time to go up and just fly. Yeah, you know, one of the neat things about that is just you get to fly over a big blanket of city lights below you if you're flying over LA. It's really actually a neat thing to see. So anyhow, they talk about night BFR and it goes again through your risk management in this. Okay, let's see, what time are you? Oh, it's 8 o'clock right now. Good. That gets us right through. The overview is aircraft and pilot, your fuel, your runway performance, pilot and command of the aircraft, recent flight experience, maintenance status, and in-op equipment. All that stuff plays a picture in this. Not like you jumping in your car and taking off. Oh, it just went off again? Okay. Yeah, it was perfect, yeah.
The screen, it will take him. It'll stay on.
Once I get on, let me get, come on, go. Okay, airport, you got the terrain, runway condition, weather, temperature, dew point spread, en route missions, weather, convection conditions, cloud cover, adverse conditions, widespread or localized, special use airspace. That's another big one. Flying through, how many air have accidentally flown through Class B airspace and didn't get caught? I know we had one guy that did it just recently. He was going out to Catalina Island. Yeah. And they very politely told him, you know, get out. They didn't violate him, so, you know, I guess he was. Approach, familiarity of the airport you're flying into, currency, workload. For you that's planning on being IFR rated, the workload increases, goes way up. There is special courses for that. FAA is trying to answer enduring questions. Can you teach judgment? If yes, how? How would temperament play a role in this judgment call? FAA wants to think of and teach risk management as another aircraft system or phase of flight with a checklist, i.e. the 5 T's, GUMPs. Run the judgment checklist at important phases of flight, include pre-flight, and whenever the situation changes or new information arises. In many ways, you already do with your checklist, and what you do with the FTP program and when it gives you that checklist. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgments. Almost all pilot error accidents trace to mental oversight or human factor issues, what the FAA is now calling pilot judgment. This is a whole nother subject in itself, which I believe pinpoints right to the middle of safety and what safety is and what safety is taught. Judgment is a factor of temperament. How do you go about organizing data in your head, what priorities you set, and how you weigh those priorities at any given time. That's another thing that goes on, and that's about all I have, unless somebody has questions. That's
Is that you?
That's me, yeah. That was the last time I flew for the Aero Club. Okay, 19 January 2016, so you got a whole year off until the end of this year. We will talk about some of the things that we're going to do in 2016 if we're still here. Even if we're not, we're gonna still have some other things. We're gonna try to have another little pizza thing before the safety meeting here, like we did last year. A couple of times we did that. And we're going to have an air show this year. And that's, I tell you, sometimes, as far as working out here in the Aero Club, I don't look forward to it, and yet I do look forward to it because it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. And so when that time does come, what is it? Again, it's April, right? April,
16 and 17.
yeah. We could really use a lot of help because that's the time we like to have, especially at least the 182 and possibly a T-34 out right in front of the office with all kinds of neat things hanging from them, so that, because usually in the past, they've had the main trucks of the public walking right in front of the club. Now, we usually don't get anything in the morning because they're all excited. They want to see the B-52 and the C-17 and those things. But in the evening, when they're walking back out, that's when they're really tired, and that's when you really want to convince them to come over and join the club, see? And actually, believe it or not, that's when when we get people to join the club, that's when they do it, is that late afternoon when the air show is closing down. And it would really be neat if somebody, you guys could help out in that. Enough said. Bob, do you have anything? John? Yeah, Bill.
So you guys, just for information on the pending MatchCom and half approval, we're planning on having a MAC/FAST fly-in into March here. It's gonna be the first Saturday in February. If anybody's interested in attending
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
It's a fly-in for just a general public base. That's a Saturday of the AUTA.
Actually, you sent an email out on that, and then I forgot about it. Okay.
I got one thing.
Oh, gee.
Okay.
We have an inspection starting, I believe, on the 16th of January. It's still tentative. So those people who have been flying, I'd like to have you review your jackets. Make sure you got signatures in there. Make sure that everything's up to date. It'll save us some time. If somebody wants to come out and work a couple hours and help us out, I appreciate it. I've got to clean out my office and install and put everything into a box to get rid of it. So I've got a lot of stuff on my mind, and that's tentative right now for January, the week of January the 16th. That's MatchCom. Our last one was 2010. 2010. We had a few discrepancies there. I think we've corrected most of them, but here in the last year, who knows? Having a hard time keeping up with a few things. So that's it's going to affect everybody. Anyway, looking for some help if you can help us out.
Yeah, and just one thing about that, please, for those of you guys that have been flying, we need to have you really think about getting in there and looking at your personal files, because several of you have been flying illegally, according to the hard copies, okay? The computer may be correct, but not your personnel file. It has to match, and some of you it does not. A couple of you have the wrong covenant not to sue dates. It does not match what's in the jacket, what the computer says. That is a write-up. That's a major write-up, especially if you've been flying an airplane. That's the first thing they do, is they go through, they check and see who's been flying for the last, usually the last 90 days or so, and then they go in and pull your personal files, and then they start looking to see if you've got everything up to date in there. So that's everybody that's been flying. Please. Okay? Don't forget to sign the sign-out sheet, or sign-in sheet, whatever you want to call it.